Was wrestling always something you enjoyed watching as a kid? Did you grow
Well,
up a fan?
yeah, funny enough, those things always went hand in hand. My work ethic and the things I was going through in my personal life, and then professional wrestling. And what I mean by that is this. So I'm a child of the 80s, Stanley. So obviously I was on the Hulkamania bandwagon early, and I loved that. And he was a superstar hero to me, and he was iconic in every way imaginable that everyone witnessed in the 80s, you know. So I was a big fan of that. I also loved the product that was coming out of Atlanta there with the old NWA before it was WCW. And you had Dusty Rhodes and you had Sting and you had Ric Flair, these Southern wrestlers. And so I would always flip back and forth between the two products. But early 90s was about the time I started high school. And that's when the product overall in professional wrestling became a little stale. And they were trying to reinvent a few things and figure out what's next going forward. And at the same time, I was working more than ever and playing sports more than ever. So I really didn't have the time for professional wrestling that I had when I was a kid to just enjoy it and absorb and soak in the product. Then you fast forward to my junior and senior year of high school while I'm playing football and while I'm wrestling amateurly. I was homeless my junior and senior of high school. My mom had a boyfriend that when I was about 12 years old, he abused her physically, and I was kind of too young to do anything about it or really understand what was going on. And he owned the house that we rented. And but then the only reason why I found out about it, by the way, Stanley, was back then. This is pre all the technology we have now, and the way that they made evidence in the police reports was they would take photos with just old school Polaroid cameras. And I found the photos with the police report, and I saw the damage that had been done to her. And then when I was 15, he tried it again, and I wasn't too young to do anything about it. And I took a baseball bat to him. And that caused our family to sort of splinter, not because of any animosity at home. We were all still a very loving, tight knit family, but we had to leave that house that he owned and move in with whatever family would take us in. And by then, I'd been working, like I said, from the time I was 9 years old. So this guy that had this clothing store allowed me to do security at night in his clothing store and sleep behind the cash register in a sleeping bag. And I would be there from midnight to 5 a.m. At 5 a.m., I'd go down to my athletics department at my high school, take a shower, get ready for school. After school, I'd have football practice. After football practice, I had a friend I played ball with. I'd go home with him, eat dinner with his family, shower, do whatever homework I have, then go back up at 12 midnight and get paid to be security. And that gave me a company vehicle. It gave me a place to sleep, and it gave me a paycheck. And so that's what my junior and senior year of high school looked like. And I really didn't have time for wrestling. But during that time, I won a state championship. We went undefeated in football and found out what it's like to sacrifice and then be rewarded for it. The same happened in amateur wrestling. I won a state championship, again, finding out what it meant to pour yourself out and sacrifice, and then you're rewarded for it. And I met my now wife when I was 16, and we were engaged by the time I was 17, and her family helped me out a lot. So when I graduated high school and started college, her family was helping me enough and supporting me enough that I was able to kind of have a bit more stability in my life. So this was mid 90s. Started watching the wrestling again because I had the time for it, and WCW had just begun to explode. Hulk Hogan had turned heel for the first time in his career. He was now a bad guy. So this guy that I hero worshipped when I was a kid was now evil to all the fans. The NWO was popping, and that was the new cool thing. WCW started Monday Nitro, and all the guys I grew up watching, from Flair to Dusty to Roddy Piper to the Macho Man to Hogan, they were all in WCW. So that was the product I gravitated towards. And I had only been watching wrestling again for about maybe 6 weeks when I saw the commercials for the open tryouts at the WCW Powerplant in Atlanta. And I looked at my fiance and I said, look, I don't think I'll ever make it in wrestling. You know, I'm not that standout guy, but what a cool story to have. I want the adventure of saying I went to the tryout. Maybe I meet Hogan or Flair or shake their hand and get to have this great story for the rest of my life. And that was really the extent of my expectations until I got there. And when I got there in the tryout, I found out that was a whole different landscape than I expected. And now suddenly I was in my element instead of being a fish out of water.
Yeah, when you're training and learning how to be a wrestler, obviously there's so much that goes into it, and it is very intense when I've talked to people because it's no joke. It's a very tough business that you have to really, like you said, make sacrifices for and condition your body. What was your experience like working at the power plant?
Well, the advantage that I had, the way the structure was at the time, was they would have these open tryouts. And so in my case, there was 24 guys at this open tryout. And I had no idea what to expect. I'd never been around the wrestling business. I'd never been backstage at a single show in my life. So I had no expectations, but I got there, arrived, and it was basically a big open warehouse with three different wrestling rings in it, and a few other merchandise cages and things where they kept things in storage. But not knowing what to expect, I'm looking around me and there's 24 guys in this tryout class. And it's sort of an eclectic mix of you've got guys that were college football players, but not quite good enough for the league, right? But they
Hmm.
still want to be a professional athlete. And then you had guys that were bodybuilders, professional bodybuilders, and was looking for a way to make money in the off season. And then you had guys that were just naturally 6'8", 350 pounds with tattoos and mohawks. But what all these guys had in common was they treated it like it was a casting call. And they thought, I check all the boxes. This is sort of an audition. And WCW is going to come in and take a look at me and see I fit the bill. And I'm going to be the next big star in professional wrestling. And the reality was, the guy who ran the tryouts at the time, they called Sarge. And he had been like a drill sergeant in the Coast Guard. And he walked in, man, about 5'6", 5'7", 230 pounds, just built like a human Rubik's Cube, just a big, thick dude. And man, he'd walk in, throw his bag down at 9 o'clock in the morning and go, grab a bucket. And you go, grab a bucket. What do you mean? And they had these 5-gallon buckets all around the warehouse, and you flipped them upside down. And the squats were just touch and go, touch and go. And you do 50 squats, drop down, 25 push-ups, roll over, 25 crunches, run in place. Now it's 100 squats until you built up to 500 squats.
Mm.
And these guys that were not expecting to have to go through all of this started cramping up, or they were just not there for that sort of challenge. And he'd get in their face, man, like it was boot camp, and go, you called us, we didn't call you. If you can't do it, get out of here. We got plenty of wrestlers. And when I looked around and saw guys dropping like that, or just quitting and just giving up and just leaving and thinking they couldn't do it, I realized, oh man, I suddenly have gone from being the smallest guy here and the least advantaged guys here to I've got the advantage, because I'd been through some stuff in my life by that point. So even though I'm the youngest guy there and in the least amount of shape, I'm looking around and going, I'm the guy, you may ask me to leave or you may tell me I'm not good enough, but I don't quit. And because of that, at the end of the first day, there were maybe 16 guys left. The second day, maybe 8 guys showed up. The third day, me and one other guy showed up. And even then, they bring you into an office. They'll say, look, we're not promising you'll ever have a job in WCW. You are not a professional wrestler right now. And we're certainly not offering you a contract. The only thing we're offering you is an open door that you can come and train and pay us to train you. We think you've shown us enough to believe that you've got the ability to learn how to be a wrestler. So I paid them, man. I had $1,500 to my name. It cost $3,000 to do the training. The rest of the $1,500 I worked off at CNN because Ted Turner owned that too, and I would just move around office furniture. But I drove 2 hours from Oxford, Alabama to Atlanta, Georgia, 2 hours there, 2 hours back, 5 days a week, 10 hours a day for maybe about 12 months before I actually had a match for WCW. And then I made sure I was ready for it.
Yeah, as we're talking here, the theme really is having that work ethic and being able to put forth an effort and be able to develop a sense of confidence and a sense of passion for what we know as wrestling, professional wrestling. And any pieces of advice that Sarge or any of your trainers taught you that you still apply to today in life now?
Well, it was just an overall theme of being willing to have the perseverance of not giving up. And what you realize is even someone like a Sarge that comes off with this gruff exterior, and you think that this guy doesn't even like me. Matter of fact, he doesn't like anybody. That's not true. Underneath it all, those people are there to help you and to try to push you and make you better. Oftentimes, I use the terminology when I'm trying to mentor younger people that you want to be coachable. Well, some people misunderstand that terminology of coachable because they take coachable as meaning that I'm going to be the guy that gives you a lot of positive feedback and advice, and I'm going to pat you on the back and tell you how great you're doing every day. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of that, Stanley, but there's also, when you're coachable, there's a lot of days when I went to practice when I was getting slapped in the head by the coach's baseball bat, and he's telling me, or a baseball cap, and he's telling me how terrible I'm doing everything and how I need to fix it. And he's yelling at me and motivating me. Now, he's not doing that to be negative or just be critical for the sake of critical. He's trying to push me to make me better.
Yeah.
And if you can see those motivations in people and take advantage of that rather than taking everything so personally, then there's no limit to what you can accomplish.
It's all